I was chatting to this guy over curry one evening. It was a stag party and we'd been seated on a long table, as large groups often are, and it was becoming a long night because this was the wrong guy for me to sit opposite. He didn't want to talk about anything. Eventually he says that he'd just come back from Australia where he'd been to watch the cricket in Sydney. No way, I said, jumping on this, thinking we could talk about this for hours. I've just come back from Sydney too. Just stretching the truth a little bit, but who cares? I said to him, we only managed to stop in for a couple of nights on the way back from visiting some friends in New Zealand, so I don't feel like we got the full Sydney experience, but we just jumped in, man. We did everything we could. We packed our schedule. We wanted to see it all, so we did the bridge and the Opera House. We caught a ferry across the bay. We went to Manly Beach and Bondi Beach. We spent the evening strolling around the harbour and seeing the street entertainers and the artists. I spent a couple of hours in the undercover Oriental Market. We went to the bridge. We took all the photos we could. How about you? Did you do the same? No, says the man. I just went to watch the cricket. All I saw was the inside of my hotel, and then the shuttle bus would pick us up every day, and it would take us to the cricket match, and then it would bring us home at the end of the day, and then we would go to bed. Oh, I said. Well, I thought to myself, maybe he goes to Australia all the time. Maybe he flies to Sydney as a commuter most weeks. Maybe it's just blasé going to Sydney. So have you been before then? I inquired of the man. No, he said. Been saving up for years for this. This was a once-in-a-lifetime trip. I can't help get the feeling that even though it was true that me and that other guy had both been to Sydney, even though it's true that he's been to Australia, I've got the slight suspicion that there was more outside his hotel walls that he could have explored. There was a wider playground he could have played in. And I sometimes get the feeling that's the same with me and my discipleship of Jesus. Because while it's true, absolutely true, that when you become a follower of Jesus, you get all the goodness and all the grace and all the peace and all the forgiveness and all the wonder of God handed to you, it's also true that there's more. And it's also true that often I just play in the shallows. Often I just move around the bits of God that I already know, the experiences that I've already had, the truths that I've already discovered. Instead of diving into the deeper, instead of wandering round the great, wide open expanses of grace where there is more, instead of digging a little bit further and discovering even greater peace, joy, hope, love, grace, forgiveness, goodness. I wonder if I'm not a little bit like that guy who's technically been to Australia but hasn't experienced it. Sometimes I'm technically a follower of Jesus, but I haven't really experienced all of it. In anything in life, if you want to experience freedom, then there's usually a little bit of work involved. If I want to experience the freedom of just being able to run wherever I want and not stop, if I want to be able to run a marathon or run up a hill, then I have to do the work of training a little bit. I have to push myself in training to get better. If I want to sit down at a piano and play any piece of music I want and have the freedom to compose, then I need to do some work and I need to figure out a little bit about how music works and practice my scales and know where to put my fingers and which note is which key. If I want to experience the freedom of knowing wisdom when there are difficult decisions in life, of knowing peace and contentment when everything around me is imploding, if I want to know the joy of generosity, if I want to understand the master that I'm following and experience freedom in my discipleship, then I wonder if it's also true that it requires a little bit of work on my part. One of the 4 key areas that I think disciples need to be invested in is growing a strong core, is putting in some time behind closed doors on your own, investing in your relationship with Jesus. That might be study, it might be listening to podcasts, it might be praying, it might be journaling and mind mapping, it might be listening, it might be walking and asking that the wonder of creation would strike you. It might be just being still and allowing Jesus to knock some chips and some rough bits off you. Instead of creating God in our own image, maybe this is a moment for God to create us more in His. And I push against it. I wish it wasn't like this. I wish I could snap my fingers and I'd suddenly be a mature, fully formed disciple of Jesus who is wise and patient and gracious and kind and generous. But the truth is, the people I know or have seen or have observed or have read about who have those characteristics, well, they're also the people that invest in their core. They're also the people that spend time on their own, carving out a niche in their day, putting into practice habits and practices and ways and rhythms, just like Jesus did. They get to experience the freedom. They get to run around the wide open spaces. They get to move beyond the hotel boundary, but it's because they've put in some time developing a strong core. On this webpage, there's a whole bunch of resources for you to use, and they're all springboards. You'll create better things than this. But there are evening prayers and morning prayers. There are written prayers and prayers you can listen to. There are studies where you can jump into books of the Bible in a deeper way and learn new things maybe. There are prompts and questions to help tease out of you things which maybe are beyond the stuff you already know. There are some suggestions for practices and habits that you might like to adopt or experiment with or try or build on and improve. There are some things that you might want to invest in your car share. Because here's a secret. This is where the magic happens. If you want to become a disciple of Jesus who truly knows what it is to notice the presence of God around them, then the core, the quiet room, the closed off place, the continuous investment in your relationship, that's where the magic happens. But it's hard and it's not easy. Anybody who's practiced their scales on a piano, anyone who's done some marathon training, anyone who's done any discipline practice in order to be able to experience freedom will be able to tell you it's not easy. And so it's important that we don't do it on our own, that we aren't isolated, that we do it with others, that we share what we're going through with others, that we share our learning and our frustrations, and we share our joy as we do it. So use the resources on this page. Invest, I really encourage you, invest in your core. Make your core stronger. Make your ability to spot the presence of God in you and around you better by spending time tuning yourself into his voice. Use the things on this page, and as you do so, may God bless you with an awareness of his presence that you haven't noticed before. May he bless you with peace and contentment. May you grow in Christ-likeness, and may you experience the wonder of the adventure of following Jesus.